Dreaming Jaguars,
Episode 4.
Breathing slowly, the smoke might burn your eyes.
So this week we're going to talk a little bit about reality, what constitutes reality.
The brain is essentially in a box, which is your skull. So it doesn't actually see, hear, smell, touch or taste anything.
Two opinions of what constitutes reality. The objective opinion of Western science, which says that particles create matter, and from matter living organisms are derived, and then from that consciousness emerges. Then you have the esoteric Eastern opinion, I suppose, which says that consciousness is king and that matter is a consequence of consciousness. And I suppose it depends really on which side of the fence you sit.
What we're effectively saying is a organ, or I think the brain's an organ, within a box that doesn't see anything, is fed impulses, electrical impulses, and some sort of biochemical reaction happens in the brain, and the brain then generates its best guess at what is around us.
As far as I'm concerned, my subjective view of the world really is all that matters, because I'm the one who's having the experience. So what is real to me might not be real to somebody else, or is that right?
What? Yeah, so I mean, if you think, how do those biochemicals work in the brain? Well, they basically create a controlled hallucination, and that controlled hallucination allows us the ability to perceive what we think we are seeing around us, which leads you again to the simulation theory and consciousness, and whether it is generated purely for our own consciousness or whether our own consciousness is able to perceive that reality. And that, I suppose, is one of the biggest questions, which we're never going to solve. The big question is, large doses of DMT, does it actually retune your brain to be able to perceive different dimensions and realities that are always there, always around us, but just unseen because we're not using those compounds at that level to perceive the reality that we're in? Or does it corrupt the brain function and confuse it to the point that we then create and fabricate a universe or reality around us from the subconscious? And from my experience, I'm not so sure that my subconscious has the ability to be able to create the stuff that I've seen and been shown in those situations.
But you would think that the brain would just disintegrate into chaos, and actually it becomes ordered of a magnitude that is of multi-dimensions, and that you cannot even put language to it. It's that big a deal and big a leap from where we are in our waking consciousness. So what is reality? I mean, one of the big buzzwords in the world of physics at the moment is simulation theory. Are we in a simulation? Within a simulation, within a simulation. You know, The Matrix, great film, could be real. Who knows? You just wouldn't know. If we could create a simulation that was indistinguishable from everyday reality, then you wouldn't know whether or not you were in a simulation. That's the whole point. And with the way things are progressing in computer technology, etc., and you look at video games from, you know, the 80s to video games now, and then you shoot forward 500 years, it's pretty obvious that it could well live in a simulation and not have any idea. So reality is bendable, moldable, etc., etc. And when you have a blowout psychedelic experience, for all intents and purposes, you are in an alternative reality, be it in your mind or be it a freestanding alternative reality. Makes no difference at all, because for your subjective self, you are experiencing a different reality. And then you sort of get down to the hard question of what is real.
Break the ceiling. It's made of thin glass.
So to give you an example of that, when it's in action, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a little brief story of a particular session that we were involved in way back when, and a description of the process of the molecule entering the brain.
One episode way back when, I didn't want any stimulation of music, didn't want any light stimulation, because I wanted to see whether any of those things would affect my my travelling. So dark room, no music. So as I drifted in, well, I didn't drift, as I was dragged, launched, chucked in, the light that I saw, where did that come from? Where were my eyes capturing light? Because there were no lights, and the sounds, almost musical, that I could hear, where was that coming from? And then the entity that I met, which I always laugh and joke about as being Alanis Morissette from Dogma, so it felt like the creator, and what she did was she basically showed me the most amazing folding patterns, or it's impossible to explain this stuff with any real understanding, but the effects were time and space was being shown to me, and how it all folded in on itself and how it all kind of fitted together. Not that I can understand that concept now, because I'm not in that space anymore, but that's what we're talking about, the drift or the change in reality.
So a trip that I can recall was a second entry in the same evening, which is always monumentally more involved than the first. So second one in. Darkened room, as Justin said, very soft candlelight, very relaxed from the session an hour or so before. Did what we needed to do, and then I was instantaneously in space, essentially in space, and I'm talking, this is HD 4K, eat your heart out, super hyper technologically advanced space with stars that were made of like a plasma, blue plasma, didn't look like stars, looked like liquid, and a ship off to the left hand side, and as Justin said, a powerful light source coming in from the right hand side, which made me want to sort of open my eyes and look. And I don't know if anyone from the UK would know this, that there was an old 80s TV programme where kids would wear this helmet and they would be on these floating hexagonal steps in space, and in front of me there were these steps. This is all very There's lots of geometry going on, moving, interlocking, and I heard the words, send him down, send him down. I remember specifically hearing the words, send him down. And from there, I was on some sort of beach. But when I say I say beach, it felt like a beach. There was some sort of fire, and in front of the fire was a child, but not like a child, any child that you could possibly think of. This was a child made of light with almond eyes, diamond encrusted eyes, blue skin, red tongue, very similar to what you would think of as Kali, the Hindu goddess. Big headdress, huge diamond encrusted sort of third eye, blazing light. So I've gone from space, very, very hyper-technological environment, very sort of other dimension, Star Trek, something of that nature, down to a beach scene with this child which was trying to talk to me, but in a sort of innocent, mocking way, sort of moving her head in front of my face, very close. Trying to communicate, it felt like, with meaning, not words. And then again in the background, this silhouette of an old sort of tribal lady who was reaching forward to give me something. And it was like the two were one, but the two were still two. And at that time I had no knowledge of Hindu religion, but it did strike me as something that I'd seen before. And I started to look into it, and I realised that what I'd seen was like a childlike representation of Kali, the blue skin, the diamond encrusted, the third eye, the red tongue, the big eyes, and then the old lady, the black silhouette of the old lady. Now Kali is represented as the goddess of destruction and rebirth, and one of the names given to Kali is the Dark Mother. So in my opinion, those things are not something that I think about regularly, not something that I have ever really had any real interest in, nothing that I've given any time to that would suggest it was locked into my deep subconscious, although it may well have been. There's no two ways about that. It may well have been something I picked up. But it just, when you have that experience, the quality of the experience, the feeling, the visual stimulation is like nothing that you could possibly make up. And that in itself, whilst you're in that situation, is reality. That is reality to you in that situation. So therefore, if I had stayed in that situation, that would have become my reality, and that reality would have been no different than the reality I'm in right now. So there's the two, for me, interesting facts about what we're trying to discuss. Peace.